Hello. Hey, long time no see. Well, I've been up to quite a few things, so that's why there has been quite a delay in my content here on YouTube. But you know what? That's all said and done with. So basically, I have a couple of projects that has been going on. I have been the researcher of an exhibition that had a premiere about historical forgotten women, which was very exciting. But that took me a lot of time to do. Besides that, I also have a secret project that I'm working on right now that I will probably tell you guys more about in the future. What the... If the camera is doing something weird with the zoom, I apologize. Anyway, we are back. And we are back with a bang. We are back with a lot of exciting content, a lot of cool history. And also, of course, we're going to continue onwards with the runes very soon. We're going to continue with the body mods. I'm very excited for that one. We're going to do deep dives into women's graves from the Iron Age. We will have a lot of fun. I'm kind of in the mood to talk about a huge stone ship, one of Sweden's largest stone ships, as a matter of fact. If this intro is like going in and out of focus, I apologize. I can pretend that we're drunk at the mead hall right now, okay? It's okay by me. So welcome back. I have missed you a lot. I miss making these videos and I miss talking about my favorite subjects in the world, which is ancient Scandinavia. So, are you ready? Are you ready? Let's do it. Let's do it. The ancient tradition of building ships in ancient Scandinavia takes different forms. Sometimes it is actual boats, sometimes it is petroglyph carvings of what looks like boats, sometimes rune carvings, and sometimes it is actually huge boat-like structures made out of big boulders. The ancient Scandinavians loved their stones. They built a ton of different megalithic structures, such as dolmens, mounds, and passage graves. They also loved making stone circles and megalithic stone ships. Every stone ship is a bit different in its size and with what the local area's history is. But the stone ship we will talk about today is by far one of Sweden's most famous stone ships, and it is called Alla's stones. Stone ships are many times a form of burial structure, and just as with other ancient burial structures, they were not exposed in this kind of way that we see them today. Some of them were also covered with a mound on top of them. Some ship burials were made for what seems to have been very special individuals. In the passage graves, we have found hundreds of individuals within the same burial structure, but the stone ships, they were reserved for very few. Of course, the custom could also differ locally, in the way where the filling of the ship could be different. On Gotland, for example, they filled the ship with smaller rocks, and on other places in Sweden, they filled the ships with soil. If this has to do with a difference in culture or geological aspects, or maybe it has to do with that the ships were introduced on the island of Gotland 200 years after they were raised in the southwest of Scandinavia. We don't really know. One can only speculate and wonder. On Gotland, there is also smaller ships in a more condensed cluster, where up to 7 people could be buried within one single structure. Women, men, and children were buried there. So the tradition varies on Gotland from the southwestern tradition, where fewer people were buried within big structures. But of course, during these times, there were also variations in different places, depending on the local tradition. But overall, in the southwest of Sweden, the structures were big and pompous, with very few graves within. If anything, they could be found in close range to grave fields rather than being graves themselves. In the middle of Sweden, we have an example from the Årby grave field, where one stone ship is documented to containing several graves. However, the finds from this digging took place in the 1960s. They are gone. It is noted down, however, that next to the ship of the Årby gravefield was also another ship, and that there was indeed burned bones found within those ships. In the case of Alla's stones, no particular grave has been found here. What is very interesting with the Alla stones is its spectacular location. It is high up on a green and blooming cliff, just by the sea. This is a mighty construction that is not only visible on any map photography, it is also big enough and tall enough to be viewed from the sea. Can you imagine what sight it must have been while slowly approaching from the waterway? Alla stones is a very debated and talked about ancient leaving, both regarding its dating and how it was used. As we talked about earlier, stone ships, they are usually considered graves. But here, this monument stands out a little bit. Another explanation for this huge ancient construction is that it has been used for, are you ready to hear this? As an ancient solar calendar. The monument seems to be built in a way which makes its northwest tip to be where the sun sets during the summer solstice, and the sun rises at the opposite tip during the winter solstice. If this ship is built as a grave monument in the same sense as a runestone would be, rather as a memorial than a gravesite, or if it is a solar calendar, no one can deny that this stone ship and this place is of importance in the ancient world. No one can deny the importance of this megalithic structure. It has been placed here with great work and care. These stones were not just picked up here close by and put here, they have probably been dragged from far away. And as impressive as it looks today, through using georadar technology, archaeologists have found evidence of an even more advanced structure underneath the ground. There seems to be even more ship shapes and stone circles underneath this huge ship that we can see today. What we can see today, it consists of 59 huge stones spread out on 67 meters from one tip to the other, and 19 meters wide at its widest. The first written down mentioning of this lovely leaving was during 1550, where it is referred to as the field with the stones. It was during 1624 where we get the first mention of its name, and then it was called Als Stene. From 1684 we have the oldest drawing of this stone ship. It is made by Gerhard Burman while making a coastal map. The first more detailed drawing was made in 1777 by the antiquitist artist C.G.G. Hilfeling, which depicted many ancient leavings in Skåne, Sweden. The first known photography of Alla stones was taken in 1914. I want to talk more about science and the finds that have been made at Alla stones that could point to this place being a place of death, even though Alla stones is often talked about as a place where no graves have been proven to exist. It might sound contradictory to claim that Alla stones is no place where graves have been found, and then at the same time human remains have been linked to this place, or fragments at least. In the stone ship, a specific clay urn has been discovered, or remains of what used to be a clay urn. This clay urn has been deemed to be from around the 400s AD. Hypothetically, this urn could have been placed there either before or after the stone ship was built there. Most likely, this type of urn has been used for cooking. However, there was a presence of charcoal and burnt human bones as well, which makes one think that maybe this urn could have been used in the presence of fire beds. Cremation was very common during the Scandinavian Iron Age. Since this urn does not appear to be a grave urn, it could have been used in a ceremony, in the ceremony of cremation. Underneath one of the stones that has not been moved before, a sample of birch could with some accuracy date when the stones in the middle of the ship were actually raised there. Also, there was burned bone fragments found together with that charcoal as well. These samples were much younger than the 400s AD. So therefore it isn't a stretch to speculate that the urn that was found is older than the stone ship, and that this place might have been used as a cremation ceremony location, which would also be an explanation to why this stone ship has even been raised here in the first place. This might have been the place where the soul or spirit or whatever else you call it took its last journey with a spiritual ship or a boat to whatever comes after this life. The stones are believed to have been raised between the 600s to 1000 AD, thanks to the wonder of C14 dating technique. This also goes well together with the big majority of the stone ships, which are raised usually around the later part of the Scandinavian Iron Age, around the year 900 AD. One of my favorite things in this world is the ancient leaving categorized as cup marks. These are also found on alla stenar. So on several of these stones that can be found here at alla stenar, there are these things here. An old kind of rock carving called cup mark. And this indicates that these stones have indeed been moved from ancient graves around the area to here, because they are frequently found on something called dösar or passage graves from the Stone Age. So these stones have likely been reused in different times. And there is actually an imprint of an old passage grave or döse not too far away from here, where the stones have been taken from. So do with that what you will. And since I was talking about passage graves recently, and now I mention passage graves and dösar in relation to the alla stenar monument, I need to explain something. What is a dös exactly? So here we have a dös, not too far away from alla stenar. So a dös is actually a grave monument also from the farmer Stone Age. Usually it is said that the dösar are the older variation of farmer Stone Age graves. I don't know if I buy into that all the way through, that theory. I don't think that history is always chronological and linear in that type of way. But anyway, the difference between a dös and a passage grave is this. Here you have the entrance of the grave chamber, and you see the shape is a bit different as well, but so here's the grave chamber. So you would enter the grave chamber pretty straight on when going into a dös. But if this was a passage grave, we would have to go back all the way here, and then maybe the entrance would start somewhere here, where you had to drag your ancestors and your relatives into the long. So if it had a long entrance, it is a passage grave. If it has a short entrance, it is a dös or a dolmen. Some of these cup marks have been found underneath the ground on several of the stones. These type of cup marks are usually linked to Bronze Age and have also been found on megalithic grave chambers from the Stone Age. Around this specific area, There are no raised passage graves, but is it so that the remains we have found close by from a dös, from a passage grave? Is it possible that the people living here in ancient Scandinavia, sometime during the later part of the Iron Age, took it upon themselves to tear an ancient, unused grave chamber apart to raise this structure instead? Is this where those stones went? So is it possible that these cup marks might have come from the Bronze Age or even Stone Age? To me, it is leaning towards that the Alles stones was more a ritualistic location where the dead, they might have been assigned upon their last journey, rather than being buried here as a grave site. What do you think? Thank you all for listening and for traveling here together with me. I'll see you soon in the next one. Hej då!